The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Much for coming, and obviously I have here my friends and family, but at the same time I have been so impressed and so happy to meet Priscilla during these days. Thank you so much for all your support and my new friends. Anyway, well, here we are. Let's talk about writing. Let's talk first about writing. That's the point. That was the main topic of this talk today. For example, we are all writers, even if we are not conscious about it, even if we don't think so, but we are all writers. We are writing every day. We are writing biography. We are writing autobiography every day. Because, why is that? Because you write texts, yes or no, about yourself, and you tell your family, your friends where you, what is going on, how do you feel, and what is coming, and what is new. Yes or no? So that means that we are writers, consciously or unconsciously. But you know, if you really like it, if you really want to be a writer, please, young generations, please, you know, this. I hope this is an inspiration. You know, why is that? Because this is what I care. This is what I love. I love to write. I'm a professor. I have been a professor for 20 years now, for more than 20 years. But honestly, I love writing even more. And I discovered when I had the opportunity to travel, to move to Spain for a few years, I discovered the difference between fiction and non-fiction. For me, I mean, it was all writing. Like if you were a novelist or if you write biographies, for me, it didn't make any difference. If you are a writer, you are a writer, period. But then I discovered at the University of Barcelona what was personal writing and non-fiction, and to distinguish and to make a difference between both of them. They are two separate guys. They are two separate words. So. And then it was more fascinating for me to discover how, if you care about nonfiction and biographies, and how does it work? What is a biography? What is a biography for you? What does it mean? The word by itself. What does it mean? Biography. Where is that? You use that. You know that word. Yes or no? You know that word, but where is that coming from? It's a compound word. It has two words into one. Biography. Bio. What bi means to you? Where is that coming from? That's a Greek. It's coming from Greek. Bio. Vida. Yeah? Life. Your life. So, and this, what is biography? What is graphy? Where is that coming from? What does it mean? Writing. So writing about what? About life. Writing about someone's life. So, in any case, this could be, for example, writing about your life or writing about someone else's life. Now, there are more levels to discover under this field. Yes? If we are talking about biographies are basically, yes, the writing, narrating, the narration about someone's life. Narrating, telling the story, narrating the story about someone's life. And that includes life and work. Someone's life and someone's profession. You know, there are two different things. So we need to make a distinction here because, for example, we are talking about writing, but writing also has, biographies has You can write about someone's life, but then what? As I said, about someone's life, about that yo, in Spanish, yo, that person that is inside, the inside of you or the inside of someone else, or the outside of that person, the public life. One thing is talking about your personality, about you inside of you. Or another thing is talking about what you do, or what do you project, or what do you want to project. Yes? One is about yo, the internal yo, and another thing is that to talk about, okay, what is this person trying to project or to do? Hello, would you like to join? Welcome. In any case, so it's talking about two different things. Any human being, all of us, we have two yos. The one that is inside of me and the one that I want to project. The one that I want people to see and to feel and to, what do I want to show? What does someone else is expecting to see, to look at me, to see me? So this is why we have two different yos. Your internal yo and the external one. So for that reason, when we are talking about biographies, we have to be very careful. If you want to write biographies about someone, a biography about someone else, it is a big responsibility. It's a serious matter. It's not just fiction. You cannot just write whatever you want. Do you know what I mean? You really have to be careful. Why is that? If you want to be taken seriously as a serious biographer, why is that? Because it's a big responsibility to talk about someone else's life and to narrate someone else's life and to describe and to get into inside of that person and be able to get in there, to dig in there and find what is exactly that person, how is that person inside, that only one he or she wants to keep and to know exactly. And also the other aspect is to narrate what is that person, how is that person's performance in life. What are they? Are they a lawyer? Are they a writer, a professor, an artist? What kind of artist? What kind of painter? Is it Picasso or Dali or whomever? Yes? All right, so basically that's covering how is my approach, what did I learn at the university and in terms of biography, and how am I using that? How do I need to be careful? Why is that? Because if it's not the right thing, you are coming after me. You tell me, hey, you as a lawyer, you are coming after me. Who told you that you can say that about me? Or it's not right, it's not correct. This is not the right info. It's not. So either the person or her children or his children will come after me. And if it's wrong, forget it. I won't have another chance. I won't have another chance to publish a book because no one would care about giving me the opportunity to publish a book. If the story, if the narration about someone else's life is not right, it's not precise. Though it's very interesting. Anytime that we want to write something like that, to start with, taking this seriously, we have to start by establishing a pact between us, between the writer and the reader. We have to establish a pact. And I need to tell you since the beginning, what are you going to find? What is the point? What's actually my goal? How much am I going to find and to provide to you? And also, for example, I also need to establish how deep am I going to go? And also my sources. If my sources is actually the actual person because I did interview David and he was able to just be open and tell me the whole story, or if I found, where are my sources? I need to tell you, as a reader, I need to tell you, well, I found letters. I'm narrating the story of this person based on her letters, or also on his diary. I had access to his diary, and that's how I was able to build this story. I need to establish the pact. That pact is very important, not only for me as a writer, but also for the reader, and also to establish some kind of common ground, yes? And also for respect, to also have your confidence, gain your confidence as a reader. Okay, I can really trust in this guy, and this is going to be correct. What I'm going to read here is going to be the real thing. Now, after narrating, telling you how does it work, what is next? Another very important detail is to keep track of and provide, for example, dates. Dates are really important, like lawyers. Like I learned that also because of lawyers. They need to provide dates. Lawyers, they need to provide dates for everything. Everything has to be dated. And if not, it doesn't work. I mean, it's a failing. But the same thing happens with biographies. In order to give you that feeling, of certainty, that's the right word. That certainty, hey, this happened this date, the 6th of March of 2026, Priscilla and I, we were working together. And we need a reference, a frame of reference, a context to build the story. So that's basically the first part. The last thing I want to tell you about all of this nonfiction writing is that people generally in the street, I keep talking, when I tell them that what I do, when they ask me, and they keep talking about autobiography. Oh, you write autobiographies. I said, no, I don't write autobiographies. I don't write about myself. I write about someone else. So there's a difference. Let's establish a difference between biography and autobiography. Why is that? Because going back to the beginning, if you want to write your own biography, that would be your autobiography. It's about yourself. Or someone else can write about you. Those are two different ways. But what happens? When you write a biography, as I said before, it has to be right. It has to be precise. When you write an autobiography, when you are writing about yourself, the story of your life, narrating and writing the story of your life, guess what? You can lie. You can say whatever. You can, because, you can, play with it. You can actually write and publish, okay, this is my autobiography. But it's the way that you want people to see you. Future generations would like to know about you, to remember you. How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be, known for future generations? So that's the difference between a biography and autobiography. They are two different areas, two different things. Though, in any biography, the biographies that I have been working on and presenting and working and so intensively, that takes so long, because obviously it's not fiction. Fiction, I can produce something in less than a year, in a couple of weeks, in a month. But this takes a long time because of the research, the details, the interviews, letters, finding papers, whatever. But what I wanted, going back to the point, the thing is that if I am writing and presenting a biography, again, it has to be right. But even though, as I said, there is an allowance, the editorial house, publisher, told me clearly that I can have like a 20% of fiction. I can also, for example, to connect one chapter with the other, there are some transitions that only in my mind, I can get very close. I do my best to be as close as I can, but on the other hand, as close as I could regarding this specific person. But on the other hand, I had to make up some things. I had to make up some details to make connections, Say, well, this is what she did this particular day. That was a Saturday morning. She was done with her husband, and she said, guess what? I'm leaving for a couple of weeks. I'm going to Spain for a couple of weeks for vacation with my mother. And here you are. I'm leaving you my home, my house, my child, and everything. I'm going away for a couple of weeks. I will be back as soon as possible. But she took off, and she never came back. That was the case with Sara Montiel and her Mexican first lover. Yes? But that I had to make it up. That was a Saturday morning, and she was finishing packing, and then she just took off, and all of that. I had to make up the details, elaborate the story, so it works. Because she was running away, and she left Mexico. She left her husband, her non-official husband, her lover, and the father of her first child, and she took off. She left because he was impossible to deal with. He was too possessive and too jealous and too whatever, and she wasn't doing the right thing, staying with him. So what for other people, this is my discovery, and this is so beautiful. Biographies are so beautiful. My discovery was that what anyone would think that, okay, well, she left Mexico to work in Hollywood. Wow, that's what everyone is daydreaming. That's everyone's dream. So from Mexico, she went to Hollywood. Well, guess what? That was not the reason why she went to Hollywood. Just because it's beautiful and just because she wanted to be filming and working for Warner Brothers, for example, she was running away. She was running away from that guy in Mexico, from Juan Plaza, for example. And those are my characters. My characters are real people. Not, they are not fiction, they are real people. And when I have to do that, I had to also dig into that person's life. I have to find out everything, or as much as I could about Juan Plaza. I needed to know Juan Plaza like my hands, to be able to establish a relationship to build in my mind the relationship that there was between both of them. So basically, that's everything regarding biographical writing. Now, the rest of the time, we still have time, I want to talk a little bit more, even if I have already started talking about Sara Montiel. I want to talk a little bit more about my two main books and Spanish women that I have been dedicating my writing to during the last almost 20 years. We already started talking about Sara Montiel, and as you were asking me, why did you pick these ladies? Why do you care about them? As I was telling you when they came, was because for me, these ladies, they are very important in terms of history, because of the social political context in Spain, where there was a dictator. That was Franco was there, as I was telling you, we were remembering. Franco started his regime in 1939 after an awful long war of 3 years of civil war. From 1936 until 1939, there was a big war, There was nothing left. And after that, one of his plans was to be very firm, to have control over everything and everyone in Spain. So that's how he took advantage of the Catholic Church. He took the Catholic Church and he said, okay, we are together, we are holding hands. And I'm going to support you and you are going to support me. And how is that? Well, hello, women are the image of whom? They are crafted after whom? After Maria, after Mary. So women, they have to be like Mary. Every woman in Spain, they had to be like the image of Mary. Like for example, of Saint Mary. Like for example, you have to be a good wife, a good mother, and taking care of your family and the kitchen, and that's it. Women are home, are supposed to be home. And men are in the street, and women are supposed to be home. But how these ladies managed then? How was that? That they actually were able to do whatever they wanted, even under Franco. Even as Priscilla was asking me the other day and telling me about the conflict. There was a conflict between them and Franco. Why was that? Because not only Franco was taking care of everything, but they created two departments. He created two departments. One of them was the censorship. Censorship in Spain. Nothing you could do. You couldn't publish anything. You couldn't write anything, either men or women, without sending your draft first to the censorship and to be approved by them. And then it could be published, or maybe yes, maybe no, depends. And for example, Sara Montiel, she wasn't able to use, to show in her movies with her beautiful dresses, such a beautiful woman, she wasn't able to show her legs until late 60s, for example, in a movie. So everyone was wondering, we would like to see Sara Montiel's legs. What kind of legs? How are her legs? For example, that kind of things. But anyway, so in other words, Franco had control over everything. And the same thing in terms of writing. Carmela Foret, my other character before Sara Montiel, Carmela Foret, she wanted to be a writer since she was a student at the university. She was already writing letters and writing actually stories and writing her diary and keeping track of and sending letters to her best friends. Those were actually what you call, for example, her interlocutor. Interlocutor is a person who is actually listening, who is actually reading or listening to what I have to say, to what I have to write. So that's how Carmela Foret started writing letters. And Carmela Foret, just to be, to give you a little summary about both of them, Carmela Foret was the first novelist. I said the first novelist after Franco took over. So why is that? The first important novelist. How was that? Because she was a student at the university and she was definitely observing, a very sensitive person, observing everything around her and narrating a story, because she wanted to be a writer. So she wrote the draft of Nada, as I mentioned before, as I told you, this beautiful novel, that is a classic. And that book became famous overnight. The same thing with the author. She was only 24 years old and she became so famous that she didn't even know how to deal with that. She had to actually run away, go as far as possible from the public eye. She didn't want to be part of it. And she married a Catholic, very Catholic husband. His name was Manuel Ceresales, who was a very important journalist and editor. And so she had the editor home over her shoulder. So he was observing what she was writing, you know. So they were married from 1946 until 1970. 1970, she definitely did her couple of suitcases and she ran away. Please ask me, do you think that a woman was able or permitted to do something like that in Spain? No. No, not at all. She did that by herself. She did it because, she wanted. And her husband had no choice other than just accept it and sign a piece of paper with a lawyer allowing her to do that kind of things. Because women in Spain, either for Carmela Foret or for Sara Montiel, for any woman, they were not even supposed to travel by themselves or to open a bank account or to not even buy a pair of shoes without the husband's authorization. And, so that's why I care about this woman, because they were so powerful and so, for example, charismatic. Also, everyone cares about Carmela Foret or Sara Montiel. Everyone had to take a look to them, were like impressed by their performance in writing, in literature, or in the movies, or in the music. And they were able to produce, to be professional, to be actually productive, and to say, hey, you cannot stop me, not even your censors, not even your censorship or nothing. That was Carmela Foret. In terms of Carmela Foret, Sara Montiel, there were two different women, two different personalities. Carmela Foret didn't want to be in the public eye. Sara Montiel, she was at the public eye until the very end, until the last day. She wanted to be famous. She wanted to be recognized. She wanted to be social, to be there, to people to take pictures of her, and to be in the media, and to be actually in the movies, to be in the music. But I care and I admire them. They have all my admiration and all my love because they were capable of doing whatever they wanted to do. No one, not even Franco, was able to stop them. And for me, that's a lot of courage, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of power to do something like that. And obviously, having also the opportunity to grew up during the 60s. I saw that in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I saw that home. I saw that, I was able to see that when women, even during the 60s, since I was a kid, I was observing that, when women had to, wanted to be a professional woman, how they had to deal with that, with her husband, with her partners, boyfriends, etc., etc. For me, it always called my attention. And that's why, basically, one of the reasons why I care about these women. But today, during these days, I'm starting a new project also about another lady. Her name is Ana Maria Matute, another writer, another famous novelist. As big, as important as Carmela Foret, as Sara Montiel, in different fields, but in any case. And for me, it's so exciting to write and to narrate someone else's life. It's so exciting that I can be overnight. I can be writing overnight. I remember one evening, I was writing, and someone home was asking me. We said goodnight, and the next morning someone home was asking me, "Oh, I see that you are writing since early in the morning. You started early. You have an early start today." I said, "Well, it's that I haven't gone to bed yet. I never went to bed." It's 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, but it's not that it's just a start. It's just I was, because when you're writing, you cannot stop. I mean, when you're on something, it's at the point. But plus, I need to tell you, that's the way that my mind works. I'm out of, I live on another planet, because I'm always thinking about these people, about these ladies, about these stories, and how do they, whatever happened to them, and to their own, micro lives and home, whatever happened. How was Carmen Laforet able to publish Nada with the censorship? How was that? That the censorship didn't see the message that was under that message, that beautiful message that she wanted to say, hey, this is the environment. I cannot even mention the word war or post-war in my book. But what a beautiful way of describing and letting you know how was the environment there, how was the environment home, where she couldn't even have, she didn't have money, she couldn't eat, she was hungry most of the time. She couldn't even buy her books to go to class. She had to borrow her books. She had to actually wait until everyone was out of the kitchen to have whatever leftovers were in that kitchen. They didn't even have, they couldn't even enjoy eating a couple of eggs every day, and so on. And all of that is actually where? In her book. So she found the way. She found a way of describing all of that. But the censors were not able to catch that and to point out what she was doing. And that's magic. That's beauty. That's literature, And so for me, that's so beautiful that was, also her goal. What was her goal? To establish and to say whatever she was expecting, like students. In what grade are you? Are you already in college?
No, I'm almost done with high school.
Okay. So imagine, what do you want? What do you expect from, you're planning to go to the university, are you? You don't know yet, exactly. But if, for example, let's say that you do. Let's say that you want to. What are you expecting? Do you want to meet new friends? Do you want to learn and to learn some things? Do you want to actually establish some new relationships? Find a girlfriend, love, care? That's what everyone, young people are expecting when they go to college. At the end of her story, Carmen Laforet, through her character, Andrea, was able to say, well, this is what I was expecting, but I didn't find anything, nothing. That's why the title of the book. I didn't find any of this. Why is that? Because of the era, because of the Franquismo, because what was going on, because of the poverty and the lack of everything that was in the Spanish society by then. So she found her way of expressing all of that. Also with La Mujer Nuevas, we were talking the other day about that book, La Mujer Nueva. She had to portray a very modern woman, portray that under a Catholic lady, to be able to write the book and to publish the book, but to send the message, hey, we are able to get divorced, get a separation, and be professional, and do whatever I want to do. That was Paulina's case. And, for me, that's absolutely sublime and beautiful, to find a way of expressing yourself in such in art, writing, or actually in a movie, or by her songs. Could you imagine Sara Montiel, how did she manage to be the sex symbol of the contemporary Spain. She became the sex symbol of Spain. She was the Spanish Marilyn Monroe during the 60s, during the 50s, 60s, 70s, under the Franquismo. So imagine how she had to play that in a very cool way, as we say here. Yes? But guess what? Franco also took advantage of her and actually asked her, well, you are so beautiful, you're so talented, so let me organize a tour for you. Let me send you to the Soviet Union as an exchange for oil, or to Praga as an exchange. You give a performance there, and Praga, they will send me some wood, because we don't have wood in Spain, or we don't have enough oil, and so on. So she was actually doing all of that, and she wasn't able to say no to Franco in that sense. He was like, whatever. I have to go, well, if I have to go, I do. She was at the top of her career, but she knew what she was doing. She was very, also, we are talking about very bright, intelligent women, yes? That they were able to, people, I may say, instead of women, but they were able to negotiate and to, hey, sure, I publish under this Catholic look or image. Sure, I am going to produce a very beautiful movie for you. But I'm also doing whatever I wanted to do. Sara Montiel's movies were very interesting. They were actually projecting, they always had a woman character. You know, Sara Montiel was projecting a character where, for example, they were bad women. Bad woman. I mean, because why is that? Because they were beauty, because they were so beautiful, because they were so sensual, so sexy, so whatever. But guess what? And they were also always playing like the other woman. She was always playing like the other woman. But at the end, guess what? She had to pay for it. So at the end, the tragedy was there. The endings of all of her, most of her movies were like that, were always very tragic, where the character had to pay for it. To be able to be under Franco's era, to be able to produce a movie during the Franquismo. But anyway, basically, I have been able to, narrate more or less in my own way, not in an academic way, but actually in a family way. The story about writing biographies, about my characters, my most important characters, like for example, Carmen Laforet or Sara Montiel. And now, please, I would love you to ask me anything about them. Just to finish, to give you a reference about them so you have an idea. Carmen Laforet was born in 1921 and she died in 2004. She was only like 82 years old when she died. And that was Carmen Laforet's historical context. Sara Montiel was born in 1928 and she died. She passed in 2013. So she was 85 when she passed. But that's basically, obviously they belong to 20th century. That was their peak. When they were at the top of their careers. But at the same time, they are part of our century. And they will be always there. Everyone knows them in Spain, in the United States as well, and in Latin America. And everyone will always have a reference to this important and powerful woman. They set an example. They were able to set up an example for future generations. And they left their legacy behind, available for anyone, online, on internet, forever. You can dig in there and find more about them and look at their beautiful pictures and all of that. So, but please, this is basically, I want questions, please. But please, I appreciate that. I love that.
Those of us who really want to understand
Yes.
these magnificent independent women's lives
Yes.
and do not speak Spanish, do not read Spanish,
Yes.
can we look forward to an English translation?
Yes, indeed. For example, in the case of Carmela Foret, her masterpiece, Nada, is available in basically in around 20 languages. The English translation is actually a good one by one of the top, most important American translators, Edith Grossman. Edith Grossman, she did that translation, it was like around 2006, perhaps?
But I want to know when your books will be available.
Oh, okay. Well, I am definitely working on that. I'm intensively working on that. I'm working, trying to find the right editors and translators to publish my books. And not only that, but something that is very fashionable right now and very common is just to bring a book, to translate a book into a TV show or a series or a movie. So there has been, I had a couple of contacts that they have been actually thinking about it and considering that. We're having a conversation. I keep my fingers crossed, it could happen. That would be nice because it would be actually for an English version of this book. In terms of Sara Montiel, in terms of Carmela Foret, the same. I hope so. I hope one day. We have been, working on that. Please, David.
So here's like someone who is an actress that is like in sort of with studios, that sort of thing, and the story of their life is actually crafted. You know what I mean, in terms of they are creating an image for themselves, looking through the studio system or through looking at advertisement. And even now that we are all like in sort of on social media, like in sort of completely crafting narratives of our own lives, how is that like in sort of a challenge for a biographer, right? Like we're already like creating these narratives for ourselves. She was having that narrative created for her through a studio. So how does that, what's the challenge of writing like biographies with that in mind?
It's a big challenge, and God only knows what is coming. But on the other hand, I go back to my point at the beginning, where we were in the middle of this introduction about biographical writing. That's important. That's the importance of a serious biographer, to make the difference, to establish the difference between what someone wants to project via Instagram in their daily posting or something like that, versus, okay, let me find out, let me tear off your clothes, let me see you naked and find out exactly who are you and why. Actually, that was a very interesting question. Why do you want to project that? Why are you showing off that this is you every day? And why are you so open and telling everyone whatever you want about yourself or your outfits or your feelings or your relationships? Or whatever you eat, whatever you drink, you like to eat or to drink, when a serious biographer needs to dig in there and find out the reality and show up. That's the challenge. That's the main challenge, actually. Well, what was that example, David? What is that? Our jury? About?
I have a similar question.
Please.
In the letters, was there something that you read that you have a lot of empathy for
Yes.
both of these women, and just apart from having genuine interest, was there anything where you just felt, oh, that's so terrible to know that this person felt that way, and that's not what anyone would expect. So particularly for Sarah, and it sounds like she, trade-offs that she had to make to work with Franco just to kind of keep her bread and butter kind of going.
Yes.
Was there something? I'm sure you've had some moments where you read it and you just felt very moved by something.
Yes.
Give us an example of something that was.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for that important question. Yes, regarding, let me see which one should I talk about before, Carmen Laforet or Sara Montiel? Well, regarding, going back to first in chronological order, going back to Carmen Laforet, through her letters, because actually I was able to manage most of her letters, like more than 500 letters. And by the way, this is a piece of good news I want to share with you. I was saving like at least a couple of hundred letters, and I was able to open a file at the Library of Congress. So those are there, that file will be there forever. Forever. A list of 200 of those 500 that I saw, that I read. And through her letters, I discovered very intimate things. For example, about the economical situation home. That was, sad to know that such an intelligent and beautiful and productive woman, she had to actually, they didn't have money to eat or to take her 5 children every summer to do a summer, how could I say, summer what, vacation. Exactly. And that kind of things. You see what I mean? And how she needed to write articles to be able to sell these articles to these newspapers, whatever, whomever would buy articles from her in order to have money for the budget, for the monthly budget home, because her husband and they had 5 children, and they didn't have enough money to pay for their flat in Madrid or to take care of their children and so on. So, for example, also something very important, very delicate. I found out something also not only sad, but the delicate things that perhaps I didn't want to know. I didn't even want to know. For example, or a situation. Talking about Carmen Laforet, with all respect, a beautiful woman, married with 5 children, and I mean, everyone's life is different. Everyone's sexual life is different. Some people are, this is in terms of the spectrum of someone's sexual life. You could be in the center, in the middle of that spectrum, you could be at the right, you could be at the left. Do you know what I mean? And whatever happened, I mean, I could understand through her letters, through her friends, her personal writing, that she had this, for example, how could I describe this care, this love for her girlfriends? She loved her girlfriends as much as she could love her husband. And, she had this intimate relationship with most of her important intellectual and older girlfriends, as she did with her husband, for example. Her husband was obviously jealous of that. This is an example very similar, a parallel situation to Virginia Woolf and her husband, who was also an editor, who was also a writer. And the kind of relationship, for me, there's a similarity between both cases. And that passion, that openly passion that Virginia Woolf had for her friends, for her girlfriends, with all respect,
Well, it
yes.
seems that, I mean, these people don't necessarily know the narrative of Nava, but I think sort of Nava is a story in which this character, this woman, young girl, goes through these very difficult times.
Andrea.
And the resolution of the story is that she actually is united with her best friend, who's a female, to go off someplace, right? So,
Yes. Yes.
Typically, in like novels of that time, these like female characters would go through all of these difficulties to end up with the boyfriend at the end. She
Yes.
ends up with the girlfriend at the end, which is like definitely a
Yes.
reflection of her,
Of course.
sort of her desires even at an early age.
Precisely. Thank you so much. That's how she broke with what was the novel that was going on. By then it was called the novela rosa, the pink novel. The girl who always was looking and expecting what, to marry the, how do you call it in English, the prince, the Prince Charming, that was looking for that. But Andrea, the character in Nada, was the opposite. She didn't care. She wrote the first time that a kid, a student at the university, gave her a kiss, she felt repulsive. She ran away. She had to run away because that's how Carmen Laforet is so important in the narrative, because she changed the narrative.
Did she have trouble finding a publisher?
Actually, it was like magic. That dear friend that actually David is mentioning, her dear friend at the university, her name was Linka, but in the character in the book was Anna. Since they were very good friends, she actually introduced her to an editor, to Manuel Cerezales, to the husband, and the future husband. And that guy said, hey, this is a masterpiece. You should send it to this editorial house Destino in Spain. That is actually, they have a prize, a new prize. It's called the Premio Nadal. So why don't you send it there? Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for more. I enjoyed your company very much. I hope you learn a little bit more about Carmen Laforet and Sara Montiel in the future. Muy bien?
We're working on the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
And then going to answer to your question. Okay, that was regarding Carmen Laforet. Now let's talk about Sara Montiel. You know, this is a beautiful story, and this is how she wanted to present it, like a Cinderella. She wanted to show off like her life was like Cinderella, and that's how her memoirs are establishing that. Actually, the title of the book is what? Vivir es un placer. Vivir es un placer. That means that to live, to enjoy life is a pleasure. But guess what? To answer to your question, I found out that it was not always a pleasure. It was not a pleasure. How could I say that a pleasure when you are 14 years old, 15 years old? According to my research, supposedly someone was actually giving her a hand to bring her to the industry, to the cinema industry, and to the music. Someone powerful, a powerful man, was, I guess, I understand, perhaps, this is using the subjunctive, yes, was probably using her sexually. That's not in her memoirs. That's not part of her memoirs at all. It's not even there. It's not even something that she wanted. She never, ever mentioned before. And I had to find the right way of talking about it and expressing, narrating what apparently happened. How did she manage, a poor girl from the countryside in Spain, how did she manage to be part of Cifesa, the film industry in Spain? The most important film industry in Spain, when she was only 16 years old, and be part of, for example, her first movie, Te quiero para mí. I want you for myself. Te quiero para mí. How was she able to be there with the top actors in that moment? If it's not because she had, like we call today, a godfather, yeah, un padrino. But apparently, I mean, anything could happen in that era. Her parents were just humble people from the countryside. What did she have? Her youth, her beauty, her talent, her dreams. And that's how she was able to reach the top of the world. She had to, and okay, let's say that, again, I wasn't there. I cannot point out, but let's say that happened. So this is something to admire her, to like her more, because how did she manage to move on and to go ahead and to not to let that or someone to stop her?
Well, it could be argued that the transactional nature of her, like in sort of early sexual relationships with older men, kind of dictated her life for the rest of her life. I mean, she continually would get into these relationships that were unhealthy with older men. So, like in sort of, or like in even her marriage to, you know,
Pepe Toes or Anthony Mann, who was older.
Mann was like slightly transactional, right? Like in sort
Yes.
of, there's this Hollywood director that, like in sort of older,
At the top of his
powerful,
career.
like
Yeah.
sort of influential. Even that is seemingly slightly transactional as she, like, you know, sort of picks up and sort of is like, okay, well, I guess I'll go to Spain now.
Yes.
It's like,
It's very parallel to Marilyn Monroe and just sort of the grooming and the studio stuff that was happening.
Absolutely.
That period too. There's a lot of.
Absolutely.
And she ended up also people
well, right, I mean, like
saying
in
Marilyn
Marilyn Monroe, traumatic childhood, like
yeah.
you sort of, you know, here you have, like, you know, this moment who's, like, you know, father died young, brother died, like, you sort of, right, like, you sort of after or just at the wrap-up of the Spanish Civil War, like, your family broke down, mother responsible,
Yes.
trafficked early.
But there was a small, tiny difference between Marilyn's childhood and Sara Montiel's childhood. Sara Montiel grew up in a home with pure love. That was pure love, especially with her mother. Her mother was with her, next to her, as I told you before, Priscilla, for the rest of her life, until she passed in the 70s with cancer. But Sara Montiel was with her mother, and actually there was also, because Sara Montiel was always looking to herself in a mirror. Looking at her mother was her mirror, her own mirror. And she loved her mother so much that when her mother died in the 70s, very early 70s, she went every night to sleep at the cemetery for a long time. I mean, her friends had to take her back and to recover her.
Did she have letters writing to her mother, by the way, even though mother was gone?
No, actually, I do have, we include here a couple of letters to one of the top writers and philosophers in Mexico, something that no one was expecting. I mean, I found them myself in Mexico. And by the way, something that I want to share with you, Priscilla, I mean, they know, but I haven't tell you, what does it take to put this together? Do you know the amount of traveling that I have done with budget or no budget? You know, I had to, in terms of Carmen Laforet, to collect Carmen Laforet's letters, I had to go to Italy, to London, to California, to New York, to Washington, D.C., collecting letters, knocking at people's doors. Hey, I realized, I know that Carmen Laforet was writing letters to you. Is that right? Do you have them? Can I use them? Can I look at them? And some people, some of them, they say, of course, they are all yours. Or no, well, I show you one, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Or I have to give them to Carmen Laforet's children, in any case. And they will tell you if you can use them or not. Or in terms of Sara Montiel, like magic, I went to Mexico City years ago, and I found this close relationship of talking again about what you were saying with an older guy, an older intelligent guy, an intellectual guy. That was what Sara Montiel was after. Any older, intellectual, intelligent guy, artist, painter, writer, philosopher, she lost it. She was lost for those guys. I mean, obviously looking for what? For what she didn't have since she was a girl. She lost her father when she was an adolescent, and also she didn't have the resources, the opportunity to go to the university. So that was her pain, her inside of her. That's why she didn't want to say in her memoirs. but I found it. I found out to answer to your question as well. And that's how, for example, with this guy, who in this world wanted to have, I mean, obviously a lot of people wanted to have a relationship with all of these famous writers that they got a Nobel Prize. Who was that? Hemingway. With Hemingway, for example. Sara Montiel was a close friend of Hemingway. He taught her how to smoke cigars in Cuba during the 50s. You know, for example, that was a reality. There's a reality. I was, for example, Alfonso Reyes, the Mexican guy that I have here. I have included the letters. Alfonso Reyes was nominated also for a Nobel Prize. Was an intellectual, was a diplomat, was such a fine. If you go today to Mexico City, he has his legacy, his home is a library like this one here, you know, with all the most important books and publications. And guess what? He was a very close friend of Sara Montiel. He loved Sara Montiel, other than he liked beautiful women. I know that as a fact, but other than that, for him, Sara Montiel was the daughter that he never had. And for Sara Montiel, that was her father, her platonic father. Do you know what I mean? So that's the beauty. That's the beauty of this work, of this research, of this writing, and these findings through the things that, I mean, if you read these letters between both of them, they're the most lovely letters that you can imagine. But anyway, that's basically more questions. David, more questions before you leave? No, just kidding. I just fully joking.
She did she wrote her own memoirs.
Yes.
Did you feel like there was anything in the letters where you say, oh, that doesn't jive with how she was kind of, you said that people take license with their, I thought that's a great point. When you're writing your own biography,
yes,
you can take a little license, and obviously you're controlling, wittingly or unwittingly, everybody's biased and they're thinking about themselves, right?
Yes.
How does that was there anything that didn't jive from things that you read or in a letter or something else that you wrote where you say that doesn't seem to align with the self-perception or the way she wrote her memoir?
Precisely.
It was all very shiny.
Precisely. Yeah, that was the point. The point that was very shiny, it was a pink story, una novela rosa, and that was she wanted to project like Cinderella, you know, that here we are, a beautiful, wonderful life. I mean, she was honest in terms of her childhood, yes, in her memoirs. She was saying where her parents were from, working in a farm in the middle of Spain, and how, but for example, she didn't point out how her father had to go back to their original town, running away from what? That's how I found out, running away from that other town where that other famous man took care of her. Mm-hmm. And this is conflictive situations, yes? And this is how I was also able to see that her career, I'm going uphill, was really tough. It was not just easy as she said, as she projected in her memoirs. Like everything was beautiful and perfect, and one success after the other. No, it was painful. And she was also, as David mentioned, she was also, and to be honest, I mean, Marilyn Monroe, you mentioned Marilyn Monroe and Sara Montiel. Do you think that they were such beautiful women, and famous and sexy and lovely and all of that? Do you think that they found real love in this life? Do you think that they were happy? They were able to find a happy love for the rest of their life? Or the home, the children that they wanted, they were perhaps daydreaming of finding the right, beautiful, lovely husband and having children and having a home. Do you think that they were able to? None of them. Neither of them. And this is...
I mean, I would suppose that when you are sort of fashioned as an object, that like in sort of finding that like self-validation or like sort of the idea that you are worthy of real love when you are considered such an object must be like in sort of astronomically difficult.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. You are selling an image.
Mm-hmm.
You are selling a product. Hey, I'm, the sex symbol of Spain, the sex symbol of the United States, and being able to come out of a cake and sing for the president.
Oh, yeah.
There was an image. It was a product. Who was Marilyn Monroe inside of her? Do you see what I mean? How did she feel?
And they're both very, almost like secretly intellectual too.
Yes.
Because it doesn't jive with the image,
Yes.
Monroe's famous. Well, she's famous for having a very high IQ too. After the fact, there's
Exactly.
all kinds of like literature.
I mean, the heartbreak of watching Marilyn Monroe's last movie, The Misfits, written by Arthur Miller, is that it is about her, right?
Yeah.
Like, sort of, she is literally having this, like, sort of at the end of that film, where she's having this like
Breakdowns.
intense breakdown. It is
Just in real
about her,
time,
right?
yeah.
Like, it's sort of
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense that it's her last movie because it is like she has been driven to that point, like in sort of and literally examined by the person that like in sort of probably most aligned with her interests in many ways.
Her husband, an intellectual guy, again, an older intellectual guy. We go back to the same point. On the other hand, I need to point out that Sara was a very happy person inside of her and very positive, very powerful person. Though you could also see, and you met her as well, you could also see a little sadness inside of her. She had her quiet moments. Yes, and if she were here in a meeting, she would be not talking about herself. She would be actually, as an intelligent person, an intelligent woman, she would be asking you, fascinated with you and with your story. How did you study law? How did you become a lawyer? She would be asking you. She would be, being the center of the attention or whatever. But she was a very happy person in a happy mood. She was a tough woman, that's no question about it. But she was also kind and happy and able to perceive and to appreciate, that's the word, to appreciate everyone's lives, everyone, and everyone's talents. She was also very positive in that way, very, very nice person. She was always recognizing and supporting everyone, any young singer or actress or actor. She was always giving them a hand and providing her own platforms on TV, her TV shows, as a platform for them and recognizing them before talking about herself or so. Any question? Comment? Comments? Thank you. Thank you so much. My pleasure. And thank you to everyone here at this beautiful library and house that belongs to Ames Public Library. Thank you so much for this invitation and this opportunity.